Okay, so I've already removed the wheel from the 996 front right. What I'm going to be doing next, already loosened up the bolts to take off the brake caliper and also the I forget what the heck they're called right now. The whatever, drop links, there we go. And I've also loosened up and taken off the brake sensor thing, which is right here. Just unscrew that, put it back in its place. This goes right through there. There is the spring and the strut mount and the strut itself. Here's the wheel carrier up above. I've already marked the locations of where that strut is positioned, and I've loosened these nuts up. And then my plan is to take the entire assembly out assembled, and then I'll use the spring compressors over here to compress it and be able to take that off. So once again, I've already taken off this bolt that attaches the drop link to the strut, and I've already loosened up this bottom one over here as well. So next step in the process coming up. Okay, so the caliper is now off of the disc. I've got it attached with a cable hanging up into whatever slot hole that's for. I've also loosened up the lower control arm so I can get this thing to rotate. If you take off the plastic clip and the plastic and you feel it down, what the heck is it? Where am I looking at? There we go. So that bolt there, that's attached to the lower control arm. You loosen it, allows this assembly to essentially go up and down now. So now all I gotta do is take off those top bolts holding in the strut mount and the thrust bearing. I should be able to lower this enough to get that strut out of there. First I'm gonna tape the fender before I do that though. Okay. Alright, now I have the strut mount bolts detached, and wheel carrier is now free to move. Along with that strut, I should be able to pull this straight out. Now, for all the mechanics watching saying you're putting a lot of stress on your steering rack, they're right. It is destroying it. However, that steering rack is getting replaced this week, and so are the inner tie rods, so I really don't care about the stress being put on it. So, alright, let's try and get this thing out now. Alright, that was pretty easy. I didn't really have to do much to get that out. Just basically pushed down a little bit and rotated it over. Now got the wheel carrier being supported by that bungee. And here is the strut and spring and strut mount. So next step is to compress the spring, take off this nut, take off the mount, and I'll put on the new H&R springs. Okay. Alright, here's the new H&R spring installed, along with the strut mount and thrust bearing underneath. Here's where I'm going to be putting it onto. Still got that tied up with the strap. So I'll just insert the strut down into there, push it down, and move it in, and attach it. Shouldn't be any issues. Okay, so I got the strut back up into the hole there. Still got the caliper tied off with my makeshift hanger, but I did get the drop link bolt back in. Now I'm going to tighten up the lower control arm down there. That bolt right down in here. And I'm also going to attach the caliper back on, or the brake caliper back onto the disc here. And then I will also tighten up those strut mount screws up there, or bolts. And then we'll check the height afterwards. Alright, so I've tightened up the lower control arm bolt. I'm just going to put this clip back in through here again. I just kind of inserted them through there, and then it snaps into place like that. That's already on. That was pretty easy. And then the last one to attach is a little plastic nut right up here. And then the plastic is back on again. So I'll just use a 10 millimeter and tighten that. You know, I don't think I showed it in the removal process, but those two big hex bolts to remove the calipers are there. And then there's another one there. And they're just real long bolts that go all the way through the carrier, or all the way through the caliper and then into the wheel carrier there. And this one is almost on, so I'm just tightening it back on there. And this is also a really easy way to get to your brake pads over here. Just take those clips out there and you can basically take the pads out and replace them. It's a really easy job. Just a heads up if you're thinking about doing that. Okay, everything's back assembled now. Bolts are tightened, calipers, all the brake sensor cables are tightened. I tighten the strut mount bolts and put the cap back on here. Actually, I gotta take that off. I forgot I gotta tighten that a little bit more down there. But then the job will be done. I'll take some after pictures.